The probably Tamron made but Nikon branded Nikkor Z 17 to 28mm f2.8 non-S-line lens is a weather-sealed full-frame wide-angle zoom lens announced in September of 2022 with a suggested retail price of $1,197. It has 9 rounded aperture blades with a constant f2.8 widest aperture that stops all the way down to f22. The lens's all-internal focus is driven with Nikon's STM focus arrangement, and the lens's dimensions are 75 by 101mm or 3 by 4 inches and weighs 450 grams or 15.9 ounces. We get a closest focus distance of 0.19 meters, which is 0.63 feet at 17 millimeters. We get 13 elements and 11 groups, including 2 ED, 1 Super ED, and 5 Hyper ED. That's a joke. 2 ED, 1 Super ED, and 3 aspherical elements, which are coated with Nikon's super integrated coating. What do we think of the lens? It's got some heft to it, and it has a super short throw. Well, 17 to 28 is fairly short anyway, but I mean, it's 11 millimeters. But you could do that with a half turn of your fingers. The focus ring, which is in the location of the aperture ring, that feels pretty good. We do get a metal lens mount. Everything looks nicely put together back there. There's no crazy rattle. It's technically all housed, but I would think that if you get a nice piece of dust in there, whenever you zoom out, you might pull something behind there. What I can tell, it's a very close, snug fit, so maybe not. This lens is said to be totally weather sealed, so. But construction-wise, I think it feels pretty awesome. Lens Rentals did give me a lens hood this time. Cool, and the lens hood actually locks in place. With the lens hood on there, I think that looks pretty attractive. How you liking that, camera 2? Let's see how this feels on the awesome Nikon Z5. It's basically perfectly balanced, which is awesome. I can appreciate that. The lens hood is on there very snug, almost. Thought I was gonna pull a component off with it. As far as that goes, it's got some spring to it. It's the pretty typical Nikon Z mount lens hood kind of thing. It's not super impressed. It'll probably break one of the leaves off if you drop it, but it might protect the front element. Dropping from like a full distance, they're definitely sturdy enough to protect it just from, you know, table bumps and things like that. But now we need to go out into the field and get some test images with this lens. All right, so I'm out here with the Nikkor Z 17 to 28mm f2.8. It's probably made by Tamron, but it is Nikon branded. I do have a clear lens filter on this, and while I don't like lens filters, I don't own these lenses, and so out of respect for lensrentals.com, we're leaving that on there. If there's any reduction in sharpness, just keep that in mind. Hey, first got to do the focus speed test, and so we're going to do that while in video, all the way out of focus. Try it on my foot. It's really fast. It is a very quick focus. That's very good. Next, we need to do focus noise. Ooh. I can't hear anything. Okay, so we got to do focus distance, and then we've got to do saturation, and then black and white, and then sharpness. So let's do our focus distance. 17. About right there. It's pretty close. It's 28. It's pretty darn close, y'all. All right, now we need to do this auto exposure is ass. All right, black and white ability with the 17 to 28 f2.8. Real quick. Okay, for a saturation test, I'm just gonna fire across the yard here for the greens, maybe shoot off this way for the blues. Take a picture of this case over here. It doesn't look super saturated through the viewfinder, but it's not super saturated on the blues either. And down here, I have a yellow case. Awesome case from Lens Rentals. And we'll just shoot that for our yellows. Okay, done deal on that. I'm gonna do this little lantern up here. We'll do that real quick. Doesn't look super saturated on the reds either. We'll just have to see whenever we get this back into the studio, but one last test out here, and that's sharpness. We're gonna use this bark over here. Whenever I do sharpness tests, I like to do something with like texture. You know what I mean? It just makes sense. There's f2.8, f4, f5.6, 6.3, 7.1, and we're probably dealing with diffraction from there. Now we need to get back into Castle de la Wade and see what we got. Okay, I took a couple shots at minimum focus distances, and so this is at 17 millimeter. And it looks pretty good at minimum focus distance. It's never going to be as sharp as it could be at minimum focus distance. But I'm surprised that we actually got these little spider webs. Oh, it looks like there was a spider there too. That's out of focus. But this looks pretty good. Nice contrast. Not seeing a significant amount of fringing on these super high lit areas. And minimum focus at 28 is not particularly sharp at minimum focus distance. In some, but no super significant fringing. As I thought, the grains are not super duper saturated, but this is a saturation that I like. I usually pull my greens back. And this particular direction of the yard is more yellow. We're not getting any sky, but we will see some blue saturation later on. This is a saturation of yellows that I can get behind. And the reds are not super robust on this lens. Looking around, I don't see a significant amount of fringing, but there's a little. This is our black and white ability, and just hitting it with the B and W. It's a nice range of tones, but it's not like oozing with micro contrast. It is not on the level of the much more expensive 14 to 24 f2.8s, but this is a good performer at $1,200, and of course Gravedigger gives it some punch. Actually, matte punch is pretty awesome too. This is 28 millimeters at f2.8, and from this distance, it's much better than at minimum focus distance. This looks pretty darn good. At f4, it's even better. At f5.6, nice and sharp. Good contrast on this lens as well. 6.3 is sharper yet. And 7.1 just barely starts to experience some diffraction. Not a noticeable loss of contrast though. Now, if you'll excuse me for a moment, I'm going to go do a short walk around with the Nikkor Z 17 to 28 f2.8, and I'll be right back. And in that time, you can consider becoming a member of the channel. All right, so I'm back from my walk around. Let's check out these images. So for our walk around, I just walked around downtown a little bit. Got nice sharpness, nice shallow depth of field. We did that at 17 millimeters and f2.8. Same story here, looks really good. Nice color saturation. That's why whenever you're testing a lens, it's important to take real pictures as well. Because when you single out a particular color, you're going to see what that one color does. But when you take real pictures, you get a sense of how everything works together. This looks really good through here. Nice contrast on this lens. I didn't make these presets for flowers and things. I made them for portraits, but we can go through here and see if any of them work. Ooh, moody brown is kind of cool. Cool. Really good contrast here. This is at f2.8 too. Let's give this a little love. Nice. So far, what's going on in my mind in color, I'm enjoying the color, and it's just okay in black and white. It's not leaving me super impressed, but we do like this lens in color. Here we go. This is the kind of blue saturation I like. It's not generally what you see with Nikon blues. They tend to be JPEGy. Nikon blues can often look like this, and that's just a little too blue for me. And so I generally pull it back to this kind of blue. It's a little more natural. I think this is where I stuck my focus, and it seems to be pretty sharp. This one here's a little bit better. Better exposure out of the gate. I tried my hand in some shallow depth of field with this lens. It's not super duper sharp at this minimum focus distance. That's kind of to be expected though with pretty much any lens. It's always better to back up just a little from your minimum focus. We'll see which one of these I like better. I like this one better. Let's give this the old 1-2 first. Very cool. Just kind of walked up and shot this one cell phone style. It is nice and sharp, has excellent contrast. Let's see if any of my presets work good. Back alley blue might. Back alley blue is pretty cool. Black tar heroic is really cool. Oh, Bonjour Drama is too dark, but it looks haunted. Ooh, I like orange deep the best. Use that as our starting point. It's doing favors to that rust. Cool. I had to come back to Bonjour Drama because while the oranges are really subtle in this preset, I can't get past how haunted and freaky it looks. Just pull that in real tight. I like that too. Spooky! It's such a poorly shot image. Sweet, I kind of like that. One person's letter is another person's art. Let's see what we can do with this. Yeah, there's something. So now that I've reached the end of the walk around, what I'm thinking about this lens is it's got good sharpness, it's got great contrast, good saturation, I would say average black and white ability. It's got insane focus speed, and the fact that it's so incredibly quiet, if it makes any noise at all whenever it autofocuses, probably be a great choice for somebody who's into video. I think this lens performs better than what you would expect. When the 14-24 f2.8 S-line rich uncle of this lens, pushing like $2,500, I think this is an excellent offering from Nikon at a really good price. And wide angles are just fun, and this lens was fun to walk around with. I think that this is a very good offering from Nikon, especially being so much less expensive than the 14-24. Now, if you are a certain kind of photographer, I understand the difference between 14 and 17 can be absolutely gigantic depending on what kind of photography that you do. It definitely has a different kind of look. Now, 3mm on the ultra wide end, 14 versus 17, is a lot different than 50 and 53. It does look different, but that kind of width isn't for everybody. It may not look cool to you, or you just simply may not need it. If you're like me, whenever I was shooting the 14-24 often, I found that I generally tended to hover around 20mm. However, whenever I do want to go wider, I really like the look of really super wide. I like the look of the 14 versus the 17, but that isn't everybody, and this is significantly cheaper. So as always, rent both before you buy, but I think we have a really, really good offering from Nikon with the 17-28 f2.8. It focuses really, really fast. It's got good sharpness. It's got good color. I think we have a winner here. I'm Z Wade, the Z Wade, and Z Wade Photo. Stay sharp, YouTube.